Guys, welcome back. Our camera person's absent today, so I'm playing both parts. That's why you see me walking in. But hey, we got to do what we got to do to get this information to you guys. Guys, today I'm sitting here with Dr. John Hall, the expert on the mouth-body connection, and Dr. Bill McAnalley, the expert on apoptosis. I'm Shawn McAnalley. Guys, we're going to talk about cancer stem cells, a little bit about the cancer daughter cells, which are basically the ones that do all the growing and make the cancer big, but then the stem cells are the ones that cause it. And we're going to dive a little deeper into that, explaining what we can do nutritionally to support our bodies to combat these things. Without further ado, Dr. Bill McAnalley.
Thank you. This is interesting, isn't it? Mm-hmm. Yeah. I've been doing research, as I do all day, all the time, learning more about, how cancer works. Mm-hmm. And I know it's interesting. I've talked to a professor at medical school and told him about stem cells, and he hadn't heard of it. But when you're practicing medicine, you're so busy, you're always gonna study it the next day.
Right.
And that causes them a lot of times to be about 20 years behind what the current science is. Mm-hmm. Is that what you find, John?
Yeah, they're busy. They're busy, and they're busy learning about what they're doing and what they're going to be doing tomorrow.
And not the
doing the research for that, but they're not keeping up with all the research that's out there.
Yep. And what's interesting is one of the articles I just read said about 50 years ago we started our war on drugs.
On
Cancer.
Yeah. We started our war on cancer. Mm-hmm. And we wonder, how much real success. We've been successful with a few cancers, but the number of people dying of cancer is increasing every year. Mm-hmm. And so...
So why?
So why? Yeah, that's the question. And that's where they found these cancer stem cells. Mm-hmm. And chemo and radiation works on fast-growing cells, not cancer stem cells.
Those are the daughter cells we talked about.
That's right.
The fast-growing cells, the tumor, are the daughter cells, and that's what the chemotherapy, radiotherapy works on.
Mm-hmm. That's why they'll say, well, we're going to give you chemo and debulk the cancer, mm-hmm. and we'll cut the rest out, mm-hmm. if they can get it all. In that case, they've had some success. Mm-hmm. But they're saying maybe we need to figure out how to target the cancer stem cell.
Right.
And they know that one of the main pathways is the hedgehog pathway, mm-hmm. which is interesting. They discovered a lot of these pathways because they find them even in flies, all insects. Mm-hmm. Anything that reproduces sexually and has bilateral sides mm-hmm. has these pathways. And if you knock out that hedgehog gene, then the fly larvae looks like baby hedgehogs. Mm-hmm. And that's why they call it the hedgehog pathway. Mm-hmm. So what they're trying to do is figure out what affects or regulates that. And it's the phytosterols in plants, the bitter components in plants that do that. And so that explains why MD Anderson says, we need to take phytosterols with our radiation and chemo. It makes it work better.
Sure. The researchers at MD Anderson say that,
Yeah, the researchers not.
The clinicians don't yet.
They haven't talked to the researchers.
They don't talk to each other. Yeah. Kind of like you see TV and the FBI and NCIS don't communicate with each other very well.
Man, that happens all over the place.
Yeah.
Everywhere. Yeah. You see it more often than not. It's just a lack of communication causing the bulk of the problems. I know that in my industry. When I was in automotive, used to, everybody was specialized. And man, that causes a big problem. By the time the heavy line guy gets done with it, it won't start. You got to send it to the drivability guy, figure out why the car won't start. When you got a guy that communicates with all of it, that can do all of it, bumper to bumper. You get a lot better results.
Yeah,
Same
yeah,
thing.
yeah.
Medicine hadn't caught up to that yet, I don't think.
No.
That's the story I heard a long time ago about Harley Davidsons.
Mm.
When you bought a Harley, you had to hire someone to fix it where it run.
Yeah.
Because none of them you bought would run.
I believe it. I believe it. They weren't all about communicating with each
And
other.
so they got together and said, we're fixing to be out of business. You're not going to have a job.
Mm-hmm.
So what's the problem? The people knew the problem all along.
Mm-hmm.
This division has protection where if anyone complains to them, they may get fired.
Mm-hmm.
So they wouldn't tell them what the problem was,
Mm.
because they worried about getting fired.
Mm. I guess that happens in what we're talking about.
It's a human condition.
It is,
Yeah.
definitely.
But anyway, so
So
that's what the research is showing.
Mm-hmm.
yeah, it's these bitter components that are in food that can actually kill those stem cells.
And see, that's the way it was designed. Our bodies were designed to catch those cancer cells individually, before they develop tumors. And the foods can do that. Boy, when we wait until a big old tumor's in there, then you're asking a lot of the body to try to, as Bill once said, you have got about a teaspoonful of immune cells in your body. That's asking a lot to go after a 10-pound tumor or whatever.
Sure, sure.
So we have to go in and do surgery and chemotherapy and all that. But the idea has always been to catch it as it starts, an individual cell, and the foods do that. And they can help, and they also help the chemotherapy. As we now know, the chemotherapy, it sensitizes those cells, even the daughter cells, to chemotherapy and radiotherapy. But they're designed, the standard medical therapy doesn't hit those stem cells. Food hits those stem cells.
Well, that's why you got the cancer in the first place.
That's right.
That's right.
The ones that created the daughter cells, you got to knock that out at the beginning. And the foods do that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
And why don't you tell about your
Oh,
experience?
well, I mentioned on the stem cells, I was talking, because Bill had talked about this a couple of weeks ago, and I was getting my hair cut, talking to my barber about that, and he goes, oh man, stem cells. He said, that is such a touchy subject, people don't, I said, well, so I'm not talking about embryonic stem cells, okay? So I'm talking about the stem cells, the tumor stem cells. So I mean, all the tissues that come from stem cells, they're called, you can call them parent cells, and then the daughter cells. But I'm not talking about embryonic stem cells. We're not talking about something that is politically a political issue at all. We're talking about the body and how the body works. And so
The
we're
stem
talking about
cells
getting
that
those-
turn into cancer.
the stem cells that produce those cancer cells. And so that's what we're talking about. So foods are designed to catch those stem cells and the individual daughter cells as they're produced before they become tumor. But if we have tumor, then we now know, and the research is showing, yet the clinicians aren't catching up to it yet, but the research is showing that you get these nutrients in there, that helps the standard therapy work a whole lot better too. With less side effects. Now, we've always seen that, even with and back in Ace Manning days, 30 years ago, cancer patients were going through standard therapy and they just weren't getting sick. They weren't losing their hair like they were, and they weren't getting sick, and they were getting well.
Yeah.
Too, a lot of them. So,
Yeah.
but now with these other nutrients that we have with the Roga, it's even a lot better. So, but that's how it was designed, to catch them early, and that's what they do.
Good, good. Well, guys, I hope you learned a lot from that. It's amazing the things that we learn as human beings on a daily basis, but they just don't quite get, all the way across the board to everybody where we could all use it. Like Dr. Hall said, it's a human being problem, and, guys, we got to work together. That's why it's so important to watch these videos and share these videos, because these are things that we can learn, because the more people know about things, the correct things, in the correct way, the bigger impact it can make in a positive way. Guys, until next time, this is for the health of it.